Urbanisation, conflict, slow response, natural disasters, yes, but air travel. Today, through air travel, we're able to spread, sadly, we're able to spread disease very quickly, isn't that right? If a major pandemic broke out, and that's like the worst, it could spread around the world in a matter of a few days. In a matter of a few days, it could infect pretty much most people on the planet, potentially, the way we travel by air. Now, this magazine had this fascinating statistic on the growth of pandemics and diseases. Notice these stats. In 1991, between 1980 and 1989, we had 991 outbreaks number of outbreaks between animals and humans. Okay, and notice the amount here between human and human. Have a look at the numbers. As the decades are going on, from 1980 to 1989, here we have. Then from 1990 to 99, we're up here. And from 2000 to 2009, we're up there. We can clearly see that the number of pandemics, disease is just growing rapidly. And our world population is not doubling. In case you were wondering, in the last 20 to 30 years, we have not doubled to account for those figures. Today there is mass animal die-offs which are on the rise, killing billions and raising questions. That was from a National Geographic article. This was a Time magazine front cover, another one, a world without bees. What's this world going to look like without bees? What do you think? It's not going to be good, is it? Do we need the bees? Absolutely. They're our food. They supply our food with all the pollination that takes place. Today I don't need to remind you of all the pollution going into the air, into our waterways. There is pollution everywhere. Sadly, more and more pollution is ending up in rivers and streams and lakes and sea. Notice this incredible statistic that I picked up from the ABC News back in 2017. The title was, "Remote South Pacific Island has highest levels of plastic rubbish in the world." But I want to share with you in this article this incredible statistic that just absolutely blew me out of the water. Notice this. World annual production of plastic has sharply risen from 1.7 million tonnes in 1954 to 311 million tonnes in 2014. Wow. Plastic. Can you see how much it's risen? It's incredible. I mean, this is a mind-boggling statistic. Now, we're all keen on having a good environment. We all want to have a clean environment for us, for our children, grandchildren, and so on and so forth. But how many of us want to do away with our big screen TVs and with all our modern bits and pieces that make life so comfortable and pleasant? And so we're fighting a losing battle. We keep going. And that you should destroy those who destroy the earth. Notice what Paul wrote regarding our earth. Romans 8:22, "For we know that the whole creation groans and labours with birth pangs until now." This world, according to Scripture, is in labour. This world is in labour. And all of nature is struggling to deal with the things that are taking place. Oops. I love this promise that God makes in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 13. "Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for a new heaven and a new earth in which righteousness dwells." That's the promise that God provides. He is going to create a new heaven and a new earth. Should we look after our planet? Absolutely. Absolutely we should look after our planet. But do humans have what it takes to ensure that we have a beautiful, clean planet? No. Because we live on a sin-sick planet where selfishness and greed is the order of the day for so many. And whilst ever selfishness and greed is alive and well on planet Earth, there will always be pollution. There will always be destruction of the environment. That's just the sad reality of sin on our planet. Well, let's take a look at earthquakes. Earthquakes. Jesus chose earthquakes. He highlighted earthquakes. We've looked at famines and pestilences and the devastation they cause on a huge scale around the world. Why earthquakes? That's a good question. I've often wondered that, and only recently I was able to understand why earthquakes. Why not floods? Why not fires? Why not cyclones? Why not hurricanes? Why not tornadoes? Why earthquakes? Why does Jesus zero in on this one natural disaster rather than include the others? And why does he exclude the others? I believe there's a reason. We're going to get to that. But firstly, let's take a look at earthquakes. Earthquakes, they are sadly very much part of life here on planet Earth. Now, when it comes to earthquakes, I lived in Palmerston North, New Zealand for a couple of years while I worked there. And I also lived in Hamilton for 4 years. Now, I don't know how many of you have been in an earthquake. Has anyone here been in an earthquake? Okay, a number of you have been in an earthquake. You certainly know that you're in an earthquake when you're in an earthquake. Because you see, when the skeptics look at this statistic that I'm about to share with you, they will often say regarding earthquakes that we simply have better instruments today than they did 100 years ago. And so earthquakes have not really increased in the world. It's just that we have got fancy dancy equipment that we can measure earthquakes today, unlike at any other time in Earth's history. They couldn't do that 100 years ago, 200, 300, and so on and so forth. So I decided, based on my experience of earthquakes in New Zealand, and it's terrifying. It is terrifying to be caught up in an earthquake. I decided to do some investigation based on the words that Jesus shared in Luke 21 concerning earthquakes. Notice what Jesus said in Luke 21:11. There will be what kind of earthquakes? Great earthquakes in various places. So I asked myself this question, and I wanted to do the research on this question. Have the great earthquakes on our planet increased in frequency and intensity over the last 100 years in particular? Okay. Have the labour pains increased? Yes or no? That's what I wanted to find out. So where do you go to find out about earthquakes? Anyone know? You go to the USGS website, the United States Geological Society website, which is the official worldwide monitoring agency for earthquakes. And so I punched into my search, largest earthquakes in the world since 1900. From 1900 to 2012, I had these statistics that I'm going to share with you right now. 17 recorded earthquakes of 8.5 and greater on the Richter scale. Now, 8.5 and greater, do you need a fancy dancy bit of equipment to tell you there's an earthquake going on if it's 8.5? No, you don't. Everything's falling apart. Okay, you don't need anyone to tell you there's an earthquake going on. So I wanted to take a look at the really big earthquakes, because what did Jesus say? There would be what kind of earthquakes? Great earthquakes. Okay, I wanted to look at the really big earthquakes just to get this right, to see whether the contractions had in fact intensified in this area also. So there were 17. And I went through and I looked at all 17 of these large 8.5 and greater earthquakes in the last 100 years or more. And notice what I discovered. Between 1900 and 1999, we had 11 earthquakes in the world, 8.5 and greater. Between 2000 and 2012, we had 6 of those 17. Wow! Then I took a look at the earthquakes that were 9.0 and greater. Between 1900 and 1999, for the last century, there were 3 of these huge, whopper earthquakes, 9.0 and greater. And in the last, 12 years, according to this report, there were 2. There were 2. Have there been any more since 2012? Thank God. Thank God there haven't been. There has not been, according to my understanding and according to my research, there has not been another earthquake 8.5 and greater since 2012. And we can thank God for that because He's holding back the winds of strife. Now, when these things begin to happen, Jesus said, look up and lift up your heads because your redemption is what? Drawing near. When you can see great earthquakes intensifying, when you can see the numbers going through the roof, that means that Jesus is about to come. And He's about to usher in the greatest earthquake this world has ever or will ever see. Notice what the book of Revelation says. Oops. Let me go back here. Whoops. I'll try again. Here we go. Revelation chapter 16, verse 18. This earthquake will take place when Jesus comes. And there were noises and thunderings and lightnings, and there was a what? A great earthquake. Such a mighty and great earthquake as had not occurred since men were on the earth. Wow. What that's going to look like, I don't know. But one thing I do know is that I want to be safe in the arms of Jesus when that great earthquake strikes. What about you? You don't want to experience that earthquake without being in the arms of Jesus. That is your only safety. That is the only way you're going to survive this final earthquake that will usher in the second coming of Jesus. This is it. It will announce to the world that Jesus is coming. Is there a deeper meaning to the earthquakes? I shared with you that I believe there is. Why earthquakes? Why not floods? Why not fires? Why not other natural disasters? Why did Jesus specifically highlight earthquakes? Not just because they are so devastating, but I believe there's two other major reasons. Always be prepared. Jesus said, always be prepared. Therefore you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Now, what has this got to do with earthquakes? Well, earthquakes are the only natural disaster where there is no warning. You think about that. All the other natural disasters, there's warning given. But not with earthquakes. There is no warning time. What did Jesus say? Be ready always. Do you know when your life will come to an end? No. Do you know you're going to get home safely tonight? No. That's why Jesus says, be ready always. Not about getting ready, it's about being ready. Ensuring that your life is safe and secure in the hands of Jesus each and every moment of every day. That's why Jesus says, be ready. I've given you the sign of the earthquake. You have no warning when an earthquake's about to strike. You have to be ready. You have to have your plan in place prior to the earthquake striking. There is no time to prepare. Jesus says, be ready. Secondly, I believe there's another reason. Earthquakes are God's alarm clock. God's alarm clock. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, an earthquake shakes everything up. And I believe that God allows earthquakes, and as we'll discover, God has caused earthquakes, in order to wake us up. In order to wake up this world. Is this world asleep, not realizing that Jesus is about to come? Absolutely. Absolutely. The inhabitants of this world are asleep by and large, not realizing that the greatest event in human history is only a very short time away. How soon? I don't know. But I know that it's very soon based on what I'm reading in the Bible and based on what I'm reading in the newspaper and watching on television. Jesus says, watch and be ready. I have given you a heads up, God's alarm clock. When God causes or He allows earthquakes, things take place. Let me share with you a couple of examples. We could share many of them. 27 times the Bible speaks of earthquakes, starting off with the Ten Commandments, when God caused an earthquake to usher in the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai, through to the final earthquake that ushers in the coming of Jesus. Earthquakes all the way through Scriptures. Do some research, you'll see that. Notice on one occasion when an earthquake struck and what the result was. Matthew 27 verse 54, so when the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and the things that had happened, they feared greatly, saying, truly this was what? The Son of God. This was a centurion. This was a hardened soldier. And when he saw and heard and experienced the earthquake, he came to his senses. It was God's alarm clock waking him up that this person on the cross was not a common criminal, but this person on the cross was none other than the Son of God. Earthquakes, God's alarm clock. On another occasion, God used this alarm clock to reach out to a jailer. Notice these words from Acts chapter 16 and verse 25 and onwards. But at midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. There you go, they were singing as well, in jail. Who here sings in prison? Okay, maybe in Australia's prisons, but not in the prison of 2,000 years ago where Paul and Silas were, where they were shackled up, feet and arms shackled in stocks, and they're singing, as you do. That's because they had the peace of God in their hearts. That's the reason. Let's keep reading the story. Suddenly, it's so annoying. Suddenly there was a great, what? Earthquake. So the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened and everyone's chains were loosed. Notice what happens next. If this will work. There you go. It's an earthquake right now for me. What's wrong with this thing? Can you go back, Fabiano? Thank you. And the keeper of the prison, awaking from sleep and seeing the prison doors open, supposing the prisoners had fled, drew his sword and was about to kill himself. The Bible goes on. But Paul called with a loud voice, saying, do not harm yourself, for we are all here. He went on. If this will go on. Then he called for a light, ran in, and fell down trembling before Paul and Silas. And notice what his question was. And he brought them out and he said, sirs, what must I do to be what? Saved. What did the earthquake cause? It caused this jailer to cry out, what must I do to be saved? Once again, God brings about salvation through this earthquake. And many, I believe, as this world deteriorates, as the rug is pulled out from our Western world in particular, and things begin to collapse around our eyes and around our ears and around everything, there'll be more and more people that will be crying out what the jailer cried out, what must I do to be saved? Because we'll no longer have Centrelink, and we'll no longer have our wages, and maybe Coles and Woolies won't be operating as they normally do. And we'll be crying out to someone else who alone will be able to help us. So they said, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and you will be saved, you and your household. There you go. Salvation came through an earthquake. The book of Revelation talks to us about a day when Jesus will come, when that earthquake strikes, and when Jesus comes, and then the time when God will create a new heaven and a new earth, when the new Jerusalem will descend from heaven and be here on this earth. I love these words from Revelation 21 verse 1 and onwards. Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Also there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with man, and he will dwell with them. And they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. And then these beautiful words. Then he who sat on the throne said, behold, I make all things new. And he said to me, write, for these words are true and what? Faithful. There's a new day coming, my friends. There's a new day coming. A new day coming when Jesus will make all things new. When this world, this sin-sick world that you and I live in, will be completely changed. Talk about makeover. It will receive the ultimate makeover. This world will be recreated, even more glorious than it was when God first created this world, before sin entered the world. Isn't that something to look forward to, my friends? Absolutely. Absolutely. So how much longer before that day? I don't know. I don't know, but I want to be ready. I want to be ready. I don't know about you. I'm praying that these words will reflect my life each and every day. Matthew 24:44. Therefore, you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Be ready. Be ready. Be always ready with Jesus. Have Jesus always in your heart and in your life. Always, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what being ready is all about. Not putting it off for another day, not putting it off for a more convenient time, but giving Jesus your heart and your life today. What have you got to lose? Nothing. Nothing. Everything to gain. Everything to gain. I want to finish off by sharing with you the story of Tilly Smith. Tilly Smith is really an inspiration for me. Tilly Smith was only 11 years old when she had the privilege of meeting the President of the United States of America. The former President, I should say, Bill Clinton. Now, why did Tilly Smith have this privilege? Well, let me tell you the story of Tilly Smith. Tilly Smith lived in England with her family, mother and father, and a younger sister, to head to where it was warmer. And so they were all excited about that, and they were having a great day on December 26, 2004, just enjoying the sunshine. The girls were building sandcastles, just having a wonderful day. When all of a sudden, Tilly Smith saw something. Everyone saw it. Everybody saw it. They were on the beach that day. They saw the water going out. They saw the sea tide just going out all of a sudden, just out of nowhere. She saw bubbles on the surface and others, and people, the tourists, they were curious. They started to wade in, and they could see what was being left behind. There was shells and fish and rocks and other bits and pieces. And whilst the curious onlookers were trying to salvage or trying to take as many souvenirs as they possibly could for what was taking place, this unique and strange event that was taking place, Tilly Smith recognized what was going on. She recognized the signs that there was a tsunami about to come. A tsunami was on its way. No one else picked up on the signs, but Tilly Smith did. Why? That's because 2 weeks before their holiday, Tilly Smith was in class with her geography teacher, who shared with all the students, including Tilly Smith, how can you know that a tsunami is about to take place? What are the warning signs that a tsunami is about to take place? She saw all the warning signs. And she went to Mum and Dad and said, there's a tsunami coming, Mum and Dad. They're like, what? I mean, look, beautiful blue sky, middle of the day. It's Christmas time, Boxing Day. I mean, who wants to panic everybody? But she would not be stopped. And so the parents eventually said, okay, we better let the lifeguards know. And they did let the lifeguards know. They evacuated